everybody, welcome to Big Balls Fantasy Football, the show with powerful picks, sexy super fans, and that's really fun. I am your host, 27-year fantasy veteran, Greg Reifstick.
And I'm your co-host, Jenilee. We are both very big Bears fans, and together we are the beauty
and the beast
of fantasy football experts.
Welcome to Week 14. Welcome to your fantasy playoffs. A few leagues don't have the consolation round or the bye rounds, but most of you are in leagues. Welcome to the playoffs. Congratulations if you made it. If you haven't, we hope you're still watching because we're going to do a segment later on that's going to help give you tips on how to survive in the playoffs. Speaking of playoffs, we of course have had our biggest balls of them all show league, and it went really well this season.
Yes, it has gone really well. We have the playoffs starting in that league in Week 15. We know a lot of you are starting in this week, but some leagues start in Week 15 depending on how many people are in your leagues.
But we have ours decided.
Ours is decided, so we already know who's locked in. I actually know in my 3 leagues that I made the playoffs in all of my leagues so far.
Hey.
So yay! So I am officially locked in all 3. Mm-hmm. But for our show league, we have in first place, we have Ashley, Cash Millionaires, and she has gone 10, 2, and 1.
Congratulations.
We had 2 times this year of opponents tying, so all 4 of the top people actually tied in one of their matchups. Mm-hmm. Then our second person is Cash, and he's Cow Bears.
Congratulations.
So, and he went 9, 3, and 1. Mm-hmm. Good job, Cash. Then there's me in third. Winning is my forte. Woo! Yay! And I went 7, 5, and 1. And then Greg over here, is beasting out. And he went 7, 5, and 1 as well. So.
You see, if you listen to us on our show, she made it into the playoffs in all 3 of our leagues. I made it into 2 out of 3. The only one I didn't make it in was Prost's League. I ended up just like completely shitting the bed and just free fell the last 4 weeks, and I ended up in last place actually. But it was a tough league. That was a 14-team league, so when you went onto the waiver wire, it was like the worst pickings ever. It was just really bad. So
yeah, it's tough. My all-female league, actually, I believe there's 12 of us in that one, and I'm in first place. And that team has been really interesting for me because it's pretty much everyone I drafted. I really didn't change a lot of players throughout the season. I was able to use my bench in bye weeks and things like that. So I didn't make a lot of changes, and it just happened to be the league that lost their mind. I mean, I won 10 weeks, and it's like every week I was just winning by a lot of points. So that was like the one league I was like, wow, I don't even have to worry about anything. I just have to set my lineup. The other 2 were more difficult, but for sure it's gonna be a fun year in the playoffs.
Yeah, we're gonna do a segment in a little bit called Duds and Studs, where we're going to stay for that because we're going to each give 2 different scenarios, 2 different matchups. You always give us your matchup questions. You're saying, should I take this guy or should I take this guy? So just like last season, we're going to give you 2 options and tell you what is the better matchup to play this week in Week 14.
Absolutely. So, and like we said in the intro, we are Bears fans, and unfortunately was a very, very tough one after coming off of that high winning in Lambeau. We kind of got on, I don't know if it's an ultimate low, but it's a pretty bad low losing to San Fran. How
do you win in Lambeau and have one of the greater games in Bears history, and then you just completely you can't score against the Niners, the lowly Niners defense? It was just horrible.
Yeah, and at home as well. It's weird. I say a lot of times, I don't know if it's specifically Cutler or the team, but they almost play better on the road than they do at home. It's just a really odd thing. I don't know. So.
What was really bad is we had our fine, I'm totally being facetious, our horrible throwback jerseys. We play like crap in the throwback jerseys. We've lost more games to the Packers in those throwback jerseys. They need to burn them. Every time they put them on, everybody at Tin Horn goes, oh shit, they're wearing those jerseys. We're completely screwed.
I like how they look. I actually have a throwback.
But they don't play well in them. They're cursing the team. I don't like it. Anyway, the Bears lost 26-20. There was There was a lot of problems on defense. I didn't get to watch the whole game. I got to watch the first half of the game, and then unfortunately was on a plane watching on the ESPN app. We made Blaine Gabbert look like a stud.
I actually wouldn't go that far. I actually think that the defense is absolutely what kept us in this game.
Really?
There were actually only 2 drives that they really gave up that ended up being bad, really, really bad drives. But I think they were actually playing pretty well on the defensive side. Our offense was really having a lot of problems. We had 2 drives really early on in the game that we started on the 49ers side of the field and could not score touchdowns. We kicked field goals on both of those possessions. When you're starting on your opponent's 40, you should be able to get touchdowns in that position. So if anything, to me, it was more the offense, again, not being able to score touchdowns. And the defense, sure, they gave up a couple drives that didn't go so well, but I think they played really well overall and they held us in it. So.
Well, you're right about the offense doing their usual horribleness because, of course, what did we say? The reason we won in Lambeau is because Jay Cutler had a clean game. What did he do this game? He threw a pick 6 and early.
Yeah.
To put us in like a mental hole because we all know when Jay throws a pick early, then he gets into his head and he sits on the sideline and becomes sad Jay and gets into his head.
Yeah, and we were lucky that they missed the extra point on that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we would have been down 7-6. At that point, that pick 6, all it did was tie the game, but still that was, bad enough thing.
Yeah, we did good on blocking that. Fantasy-wise, let's get through that really quick. Blaine had 6 carries for 75 yards. That's what kind of killed us. We somehow couldn't contain their quarterback. 196 yards passing. He got one touchdown. He ran in for 44 yards. Not pretty. And he threw in overtime a 71-yard game-winning bomb to Torrey Smith. That was ugly. Cutler, 202 yards and a pick 6. No touchdowns. Forte, 84 yards and a rush. 39 yards receiving and a touchdown. Now, here's one thing I need to gripe about from fantasy. I own Matt Forte. A lot of people own Langford. And now, unfortunately, going into your playoffs, you have a running back by team. So, if you have one of the 2 of them going into this week, we didn't plan this, who would you put in your lineup this week?
I'm always going to go Forte.
Me too.
I'm always going to go Forte. He's the starter. Langford, I think, can definitely get you some yards in a goal line situation. They might have Langford go in instead of Forte, but I'm still going to put Forte in. They're going to use him in more of the passing situations as well. So for PPR, I think Forte benefits you a lot more. And Kadeem Carey, I wouldn't really worry about. No. They don't use him a lot. Yes, he did score a touchdown in this game against the Niners, but typically he's not in there enough to do anything. So you should be pretty solid with Langford or Forte, but I have Forte on one of my teams, and I would go with him, especially PPR.
I'm going to stick with Forte also. I wanted to bring that up because I actually got asked by some people when I was hanging out at the bar, hey, should I play Langford? So I switch over to him. I agree with Jenilee. I don't think you should either. I mean, he's the guy. He's going to be our guy, of course, through the rest of the season, barring any, injuries. And, he's our guy. He's going to keep pushing it, and I think we're going to use him at in the end zone a lot more. So, enough Bears.
I don't know if I'd go with Robbie, though. I'm not sure. I'm surprised I'm saying this. I'm not sure I would go with Robbie Gould because he missed 2 field goals in that game.
Yep.
The last one was to win the game and not even go into overtime. It was a 36-yarder. Not a chip shot, but should have had that one. Should have had a 36-yarder. And I think the other one he missed was like a 41. But no excuses there.
No.
I think statistically he's having his worst season of his career. I mean, I'd have to go back and really research it. But from what I can remember, he's missed more field goals this year than ever. I don't know what's going on with him, but that's definitely a problem. And if you lose points for missed field goals, you don't want that. And ultimately, that's what, Cutler's pick 6 was terrible, but ultimately what lost us the game were those 2 field goals missed and the one, especially at the end.
Definitely. Kickers get older. and they get worn out. And he's done really well for us. Who knows? Maybe we're going to end up with some rookie kicker, coming up we might draft one this season and try him out, because the one problem with Robbie is we are paying him a lot of money to make these kicks.
Yeah.
And when you're missing them and we're paying you the amount of money we're paying you, that's where the problem really comes in.
It's deflating to your team to go down there, and get in field goal position.
Yeah.
For you to win the game, and you can't pull it off, and then the team has to go into overtime. And I know these are professional players, but you can't tell me that doesn't have some effect on the players thinking, okay, gosh, we thought we had this one in the bag. Yeah. Now we're in overtime, and mentally, I just don't think you're not in a good position to play the overtime.
Yeah, definitely. Oh well, Bears.
that I said. People were on the Bears might make the playoffs. No. I was saying the Bears are not going to make the playoffs this year. I'm pretty sure I said it on here almost every single week.
Yep.
But after the win in Green Bay, a lot of fans were on there, kind of bandwagon a little bit. And, it's not that year for the Bears. They're rebuilding, but this loss absolutely killed their chances. So the little bit of chance they had is no longer. So, Bears, you can go ahead and lose out the rest of the season.
And get us some better draft picks,
and get us a better first rounder.
Yeah, you got the Redskins to start with this week. So, come on. Yeah. Let's go. God, I hope they can beat the Redskins. My God.
No, I hope they lose. Lose out.
I can't wish for a loss. I can't wish for a loss. Okay, she's wishing for a loss. I'm wishing for a win this week. Anyway, enough of Bears bitching. We are going to be right back after this. We are not having the Real Men and Beasting Out segments this week. We are doing something different. We are doing Studs and Duds, where we are going to tell you if a matchup is a stud or a matchup is a dud, and we're going to pit them against each other and give you a lot of playoff help. Also, don't forget to go to our app. That's right, our app, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Go download our app for free. We have player updates on there, which is the most important thing, I think, because that shows you who's injured, who you need to make sure to not play. We get those updates on there for you every single week. We have blogs that are awesome to read that should have helped you all season if you've been reading them. And we also have lineup Q&As. And, of course, you can watch the show straight from the app. So
Definitely. Okay, we will be right back with Studs and Duds. Stay tuned.
Hi, and welcome back to Big Ball's Fantasy Football Week 14, the start of your playoffs for a lot of you. That's right, playoffs. It's a very exciting time, and you got to win or you're done.
Yep.
So we change up our segment a little bit on this one. Instead of doing the Beasting Out and the Real Men, we do our Studs or Duds, where we compare two different matchups in each position for you guys and tell you who we would rather start out of those two. And, of course, we give you the reasons why. So let's go ahead and start it off with quarterbacks with Greg. So, Greg, who would you start? Ryan Fitzpatrick versus the Titans or Kirk Cousins versus Chicago?
Now, okay, you have Ryan Fitzpatrick playing the Titans this week. Tennessee gives up the 9th most points to quarterbacks. And then you have Kirk Cousins playing Chicago. The Bears, 10th, they give up the 10th least points to quarterbacks. I have to go with Ryan Fitzpatrick in this because Kirk Cousins, 2 out of the last 4 weeks, sure, he's given you big points. But I find that very deceiving there against very weak defenses. What I based my picks on are actual real scenarios in one of my leagues. It's unfortunately the league that I'm not in the playoffs in, but these are the 2 quarterbacks I have. If I were in the playoffs with this, I would definitely go with Fitzpatrick. He's gotten over 50 points in each of the last 2 weeks if you're in PPR leagues. He has been streaking like crazy. He has 667 yards over the last 2 games. That's crazy. That's nuts.
And he's got nice Brandon Marshall over
Yes.
there, right? Doing a lot of that.
Gee, wow, we could have used you on our team, Brandon. Too bad our coaching staff thought you were a problem. Boy. Anyway, yeah. I'd go with Fitzpatrick on this if these are your two quarterbacks you have to choose from.
And I think he's been a little more consistent over the whole season than Kirk Cousins as well. So.
Most definitely.
I like that one.
So what's your lineup that you have?
So for me, mine was Marcus Mariota versus the Jets or Jameis Winston versus the Saints. And yeah, I went with the rookies on this one because I wanted to talk a little bit about the two rookie quarterbacks. They are both playing really well this season, and I think better than most people expected. In the beginning, both of them had, Mariota started off really well in his first game. But the first few weeks for both of them, for the most part, was a little rocky. And, learning. It's an all new game when you're in the pros.
Yep.
But, they've really evened out, and they have had pretty good seasons. So let me just let you know what they've done so far this season. Mariota has passed for 2,512 yards, 21 touchdowns, and has had 14 turnovers total. That's interceptions and fumbles. And Jameis Winston has passed for 2,877 yards, so a little more passing yards on his side, 22 touchdowns, and 12 turnovers for him. So their touchdowns and turnovers are very, very similar statistically. And again, they have more turnovers because of being rookies. That's just going to happen. But for this one, this week, I would go Jameis Winston versus the Saints over Mariota. Both matchups aren't bad. But 4 quarterbacks have 4 or more touchdown passes versus the Saints. That Saints secondary is just horrible. I mean, that's insane that 4 or more touchdown passes 4 times this season they've given up. Now, the Jets secondary has been struggling more since week 7 than they did in the beginning of the season. They were pretty much locking things down. They've been struggling a little bit. But they're still only allowing 2 passing touchdowns per game. So they're still not giving up a lot of passing touchdowns by any means. And I think Winston will do better for you this week than in week 2 against the Saints. In week 2 against the Saints, he only had 207 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 rushing touchdown. So he did have 2 touchdowns. But I think he'll pass for at least 2 or 3 touchdowns. Again, he's playing much, much, much better than he did earlier in the season. And it's a divisional matchup, but that really doesn't matter to me. Tampa Bay's still in a position for the wild card. And who knows with Mariota if Darrelle Revis will be back this week or not. We're not sure about that because he's still going through the concussion protocol. But if he's back, that also will change things and make things more difficult for Mariota. So I would definitely go Winston in that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you have Jameis in that second week, new to the league, still having struggles. He's now going to have a much better game plan in this game. So I could definitely jump on board with that for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Should we move it on to running backs?
Let's move it on to running backs. And you go first on this one.
So this one I have, are you going to start Latavius Murray versus the Broncos or D'Angelo Williams versus the Bengals? Now, both of these games are division games. And as we say, division games a lot of times can be low scoring in fantasy.
Yeah.
Not always. Sometimes there's those breakout moments for sure. But the teams know each other better. We know that. But I'm going to go D'Angelo Williams in this one over Murray. The Broncos are 5th against the run, and the Bengals are 9th against the run. So they're both pretty strong against the run. But the Broncos are better, which is going to be more difficult, I think, for Murray. The Broncos actually held Murray to 39 yards and 0 touchdowns in week 5. And he's only had 2 100-yard games this season. So the good thing about Murray, if you're in a PPR league, is they use him more in the passing game in Oakland than, say, D'Angelo Williams is used. But, again, he's struggling to get those 100-yard games. The Broncos really locked him down, and I just think he's going to have a tough time again. Meanwhile, since Le'Veon Bell went out, D'Angelo Williams' stock has been on the rise. He had 71 yards versus the Bengals in week 8, so not a 100-yard game, but still pretty good with the 71. And he's had 2 100-yard games 3 touchdowns and 1 2-point conversion in the last 4 weeks. So he's getting you the 100 yards. He's getting you the touchdowns. He's kind of turned into a beast over there. So comparing those two, I definitely like Williams better.
The reason Williams has been so much better this season is he changed teams from Carolina, where he was a lot heavier. He lost a lot of weight. So that's giving him a lot lighter load. And yeah, when Le'Veon Bell went down the first time, he was able to really shine. Now that Le'Veon Bell went out for the season, he is just totally taken advantage of it. I have him on 2 of my fantasy teams, and I have been loving it.
Now, we kind of, by accident, but we kind of doubled up on this one.
Yeah.
So your running back choices are Devontae Freeman versus the Panthers or D'Angelo Williams versus the Bengals.
Now, in this one, I'm going to have to go with Devontae because I know you're saying, okay, Devontae Freeman's playing the Panthers. Really hard defense. The difference is the Panthers' defense actually hasn't been good against the run this season at all. They've given up the 17th most points to running backs. They haven't given up too many 100-yard games, very few. They've given up a lot of to running back by committees to a lot of different running backs. Freeman has just been a complete stud. I have to agree, Williams has been too, but Devontae Freeman, ever since I picked him up, and Prost, ever since you made him a one-hit blunder, he has just lost his mind. Thank you so much, Prost. But yeah, I'd have to go with Devontae in this one just because he has the better defensive matchup in this. But both of them are studding out. So, I mean, neither of them are a bad pick. I would just have to pick one over the other.
And again, that's interesting because it's both are division games again. So I think there's quite a few division games going on this week. So
yeah, thanks a lot League, for helping us out in the playoffs.
I know.
Making these decisions.
Should we move on to wide receivers?
Let's move on to wide receivers.
Okay.
And I'm going to be a broken record from last week. I told you to put in Doug Baldwin, and what did Doug Baldwin do for you last week? He completely lost his mind. We have Doug Baldwin up against the Ravens this week. The Ravens have given up the 5th most points to wide receivers. And Alshon Jeffrey, who a lot of people, we have him, we want to play him, and I have both of them. And last week, I actually, in one of my leagues, I played Alshon in my flex over Doug Baldwin. Did not in my one league, I did play Doug Baldwin and got a ton of points. And the other one, I put Alshon in the flex, and I'm just sitting there watching the points add up on the bench. It's the most painful thing. We can all feel it. It's the worst. Alshon is up against the Redskins this week that give up the 13th most points to wide receivers. So you're thinking, okay, you know, they both defenses are pretty weak. Of course, the Redskins are reeling from losing to Dallas on Monday Night Football in an embarrassing loss. But Baldwin has just been on fucking fire. He's been losing his mind. Ever since, and Jimmy Graham is now out. I think he was just a nuisance to fantasy people because Jimmy Graham did nothing for people in fantasy. Nothing at all. And then he wouldn't block for runners. So what a big pain in the ass, a big expensive pain in the ass up there. I think the reason that the Seahawks beat the crap out of Minnesota this week is because Jimmy Graham's out. I think you're actually getting, Thomas Rawls is getting blocking from tight ends that actually want to block. But Baldwin, 6 touchdowns, 433 yards in the last 4 weeks. That's insane. That's just fantasy ridiculous. Alshon Jeffrey, because he's been gimpy all season, only has 2 touchdowns on the entire season.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah, he's been getting you some yardage, but he definitely, hasn't been getting the touchdowns. But the Bears haven't been scoring a lot of touchdowns, period. Right. They are not a high-scoring offense.
No, and Alshon's only gotten gone over 100 yards. He hasn't actually gone over 100 yards in the last 3 games. And I don't see him doing it. I don't see him doing it this week either. As you say, it's going to be low yardage. Maybe you'll get a touchdown out of him against the Redskins because they're pretty soft in their secondary. But I mean, Doug Baldwin. I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm loving it.
I like it. So mine for wide receivers is. Staying in the NFC North with this one. Mm-hmm. Are you going wide receiver Calvin Johnson versus the Rams or Randall Cobb versus the Cowboys? Now, the Rams give up the 6th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and the Cowboys give up the 4th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. So both defenses are pretty tough on wide receivers, but I am going to pick Calvin Johnson for this one. Definitely go Megatron over Cobb's matchup. Johnson, first of all, he hasn't been as injured this season as last year or as the last couple years. He's had a couple injuries. For the most part, he's been out there, especially in the last, 6 weeks, 5 weeks or so. But he's gotten you double-digit fantasy points every week except for one.
Wow.
So even if he's not getting you a touchdown in every game, he's getting you those catches. He's getting you that yardage. And that's, of course, looking in at PPR leagues. And he's had 4 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. So there you go. They're definitely targeting him. The Lions offense has really gotten, their shit together, let's just say.
Oh, totally.
Since their bye week. They've played like a completely different team. You see it in Stafford. You see it in Megatron. And I just think that that's going to continue going on. As for Randall Cobb and the Packers, Cobb only has 656 receiving yards on the season, which is only a 55-yard per game average. So that's a terrible average right there. And we know that Green Bay's offense has been playing really shaky. I actually think Cobb is a much better receiver when Jordy Nelson is in there because defenses have to account for Jordy Nelson. Cobb can get open easier. I think he's struggling without Jordy Nelson being opposite him. As we know, the pass rush has been getting to Aaron Rodgers. That offensive line hasn't looked very good. So again, that's made it be a tough time on the receivers, a tough time on Cobb. And I just think Megatron has the better matchup in this one. So that's my little NFC North duo I did, I guess.
Definitely. So you want to take tight ends first?
Yeah, let's move it on to tight ends. So for me, I had tight end Antonio Gates versus the Chiefs or Jordan Reed versus my Bears. And again, the Chiefs give up the fewest fantasy points to tight ends, and the Bears give up the 6th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. So again, both defenses very strong, very tight against tight ends. But I am going to go with Jordan Reed in this one against the Bears over Gates. I know Gates is a very good and talented tight end, but I like Reed's matchup better against these Bears. The Chiefs held Gates to 1 catch for 6 yards in Week 11, which, as we know, is a divisional game, which we've already talked about, can be fantasy poison at times, whereas this other matchup, Redskins-Bears, is not a division game. And Reed has been targeted 8 or more times in the last 3 weeks. He has 5 games of 50 yards or more. That's a pretty solid performance by your tight end. So they're definitely looking for him. They also are looking for Reed in the end zone. They don't always find him, but he's a big target out there, so they do look for him. And let's just face it, the Chiefs' defense has really stepped up since Week 8. The Redskins are playing for the playoffs. So it's very important for them in this game.
Horrible division.
In a terrible division.
In a dumpster fire of a division.
Terrible division.
Whoa.
But hey, they're still in it. They're playing for the playoffs. And, so I think they're going to do everything and use everyone they can to win. And the Chiefs defense, again, has really stepped it up. They kind of found themselves. They didn't start out the season very strong. But the Chiefs are playing for a playoff spot as well. So, I don't like Gates in this one. I would go Reed. So.
No, I agree with you. We'll get to the Chiefs defense in one of our later scenarios. My tight end matchups are you going to pick Coby Fleener against the lowly Jaguars who give up the 3rd most points to tight ends? Or are you going to go with Jason Witten versus the Packers who give up the 10th most fantasy points to tight ends? And as we know, I just said the division over there is a dumpster fire with the Redskins leading it and the Cowboys bringing up the rear, but they just beat them, and they actually have a chance to make the playoffs. Hi to my girlfriend out there. Jeez Louise.
We wish the Bears were in that division.
Oh, God. She loves the Cowboys.
Or the AFC South. That's another garbage division.
We're getting a lot of them this season for sure. But so both of them have backup quarterbacks. you have Hasselback throwing to one of them. I mean, it's just sad, and you have Matt Castle throwing to the other one. It's just a horrible situation.
Neither are fun, but there's not a lot of tight ends out there. So.
Right. Well, not only that, when you have backup quarterbacks, they are checking down like maniacs. They get blitzed all the time. Defensive coordinators throw blitzes at them like crazy. And who do they dump off to? They throw back, and the guy that's open is hopefully your nice big tight end. I have to go with Kobe Fleener on this one. And I know that's kind of a shocker because Witten is the guy. He just went over, 1,000 receptions. Congratulations, Witten, on Monday Night Football, breaking the record. But just Matt Castle is a horrible, horrible quarterback. And I just think Kobe Fleener, he had the most targets last week, actually the last 2 weeks. From Hasselback, he's been checking down to him. And so you're going to, in PPR, you're going to get your points per reception. You're going to get your yards. He's been getting thrown to. Witten has not had a touchdown since week 1. Witten also has not had a game over 75 yards all season. No 100-yard game. So I know Witten is the name. And that's one other thing I want to bring up. It's like me being with Alshon Jeffrey all season. He comes back, he's healthy, somewhat healthy, you just want to play him. He's the name. There's a lot of fantasy novices out there that play the names every week. You need to look at these matchups. That's why we tell you on the show who are against the better defenses or the worst defenses, and you got to play the matchups in the playoffs. It is so strategy-wise important because, as Jenilee said, if you lose this week,
you're done.
You're going home. That's it. You're done. So definitely have to go with Fleener on this one.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that one. Hasselbeck has been winning them games over there. Matt Castle has not.
Right.
Yes. For the most part. Should we move it on to defenses?
Yeah, yes. All right. So Panthers defense versus the Falcons, who have been in a complete free fall for the latter part of the season, or as Jenilee was just talking about, the Chiefs versus the Chargers, who have given up the 5th most fantasy points to defense. Carolina, as I said earlier, they aren't good against the run. They've been very erratic fantasy-wise. Yes, I know they are playing, Ron Rivera's over there playing Bears football. Hardcore defense, a good offense finally. You have Cam Newton finally passing the ball and keeping the defense off the field. But just fantasy-wise, the defense over there in Carolina have been letting a lot of high-scoring games get underneath them at unexpected times. Case in point, this week against the Saints.
Right.
Nobody saw that one coming. Everybody was a little shocked by that. So all of a sudden, you're sitting there with only 5 fantasy points on defense, and you're like, crap. Prost, who I, of course, is watching, he won a league basically playing a good running back and a good defense all season. Defenses are important, even though you kind of just pick them up for a week. Kansas City has gotten double-digit fantasy points 5 out of the last 6 weeks. They got 20 fantasy points the last time they played against San Diego, and I just see them whooping their ass again. And I just see you getting a lot of defensive points playing Kansas City against San Diego, who have, sorry, Ashley, have kind of just given up the season. It's kind of looking like. So that's who I'd go with on this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I said, the Chiefs' defense has just they've been on a roll as of lately, so they found themselves. So for me, my defense options
we have a little bit of a technical difficulty. We're going to leave this up here.
You'll see the graphic in a second.
Yes, you will.
Are the Vikings defense versus the Cardinals offense or the Texans defense versus New England's offense? Now, this is a tough one because both of those offenses are very high-scoring offenses, are top 5 offenses in the league, so it's hard. Right now, the Vikings have 27 sacks, 8 interceptions, 7 fumble recoveries, and 1 defensive touchdown. And the Texans have 30 sacks, 10 interceptions, 4 fumble recoveries, and 1 defensive touchdown. So their statistics for the season aren't too far off, aren't too crazy. But I am going to go the Texans versus the Patriots on this one. I know, maybe a little surprising.
I'm with you on this.
Maybe a little surprising on that one to some of you. But hey, Brady has been sacked 7 times in the last 2 weeks. As I just read, the Texans, we know, can get to the quarterback because they do have 30 sacks on the season. And we know that he's missing weapons. He's missing Gronk. He's missing Edelman.
Yep.
And that, again, is making him hold on to the ball longer. And his line, is a lot of rookies, a lot of younger players. And they're just not protecting him as well. Also, the Cardinals, they are the number 1 offense in the league. And let's face it, the Vikings gave up 38 points last week to Seattle. Now, I know that does not happen for them every week. That was one of those rare type of things. And I think they will play much better coming off of that game defensively. But still, this Cardinal offense has been killing teams all season long. I think they're going to be able to do it again. And the Cardinals are playing at home, which makes it a little bit more difficult. On the Vikings, going on the road, playing in Arizona with a very good team. And the Patriots are away. So that helps out the Texans a lot. As we know, that crowd noise in Houston might even get to Brady and the Patriots offense. So I think the Texans, they've been getting a lot of turnovers lately. Like we talked about, they are a team that they found themselves.
Definitely.
They were lost at the beginning of the season.
I told you 1 week not to play them.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was.
Yeah, but that defense, they finally found themselves. They've been getting interceptions and sacks and all that fun stuff, and that's what gives you the fantasy points. And, Patriots have struggled, 2 losses in a row now, and not having those weapons is a big deal. So
They lost to the Eagles.
Oh, yeah.
The Eagles. The Patriots lost to the Eagles. God, it was backwards week this week in the NFL. Totally backwards week. I'm way behind you on that. The Texans are surging and the Patriots are struggling. You got to take advantage of that. It's kind of rare that you have a situation like that. I would definitely use that to your advantage in your first week of the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that's it. We have covered all of the positions. Sorry. Put in a kicker. Good luck. Maybe not Robbie Gould this week.
I know.
For crying out loud. But thank you for watching this week. Again, don't forget to download the app. Tell your friends to download the app. Go to bigballsfantasyfootball.com. Go to our Facebook page. Go to our Twitter. Go to our Instagram. And we're going to be back again next week with another bunch of studs or duds. And follow this out to help you out in your matchups next week.
Absolutely. And if you have specific questions for us, be sure to get them to us on our app.
Yep.
The earlier, the better. That always helps us to get them before 10 minutes before the game starts. Helps us answer them. But, we do basically the same thing where you can ask us this person or this person, and we'll let you know who we think will score more points.
All week you can ask us questions. Yeah, I know they come in 10 minutes before, and we thank you for them. But sometimes we're a little bit busy over at the Bears bar. We're all football fans, so we wish we could have the staff of ESPN. We just don't.
Yeah, a little earlier.
Yes, a little earlier, about a half hour before the game. We'll get you that. Okay, well, good luck in your first week of the playoffs, and hopefully we see you in the second week of the playoffs and your finals.
Absolutely. Good night, you guys.
Good night.